Hello, and today we are going to talk about the most interesting dynamic that I've actually come to understand is that submission is in fact greater than dominance. Now, this is a pretty interesting paradigm because oftentimes when we think of something being dominant, we think of being able to impose our will on something, being able to make what we want happen. And so in order to do that, we oftentimes think it's coming through dominance. And characteristically in the media and just throughout history, we oftentimes think of those who are dominant as being able to win. But we see now later, in fact, those who are submissive hold the power. And so what do I mean when we talk about it? Well, we can just talk about some examples, right? If you talk about, there's a really popular saying, like, the head that holds the crown has the power, and the neck that holds the head holds the true power. And so, or that the man is the head of the family and the woman is the neck, right? That controls the head. And this is the idea that by being underneath something, by being submissive to it, we actually gain power and control over it. And this is a very interesting relationship we have with power, right? So power, as power goes up, we just think of power as the ability to impose or direct your will into the environment. Basically, the ability to get what you want. Then, as power goes up, we realize naturally that the amount of control one needs to have goes down. So power and control actually have a bit of an inverse relationship. Because when someone has a lot of power, they don't need to control anything. They don't need to be conscious about that. A good example is like, for instance, like a very attractive woman, right? If she's very attractive, she's going to be able to draw the men she wants onto her. She doesn't have to try and make it happen. When she tries to make it happen, when she tries to take control of a situation, her power actually begins to go down, right? Because we see that as power goes up, control goes down. And as control goes up, inversely, power goes down. And because when we have power over something, we're not trying to control it. So dominating something, dominance is the capacity or will to impose. So there's ability to impose, and then the capacity and the will, or the will to impose. So naturally, those who have power don't feel the need to impose their power. They just have it. It's part of who they are. It's inherent. It's an inherent characteristic. It's inherent. Versus control, we see, is something that people do when there's a sense of separation. So they try to take control over something. We see it, for instance, if we have natural power over ourselves, or we don't necessarily need to control ourselves because we're self-possessed. We feel the need to control something when we feel that thing is out of control, when it is not within our reach because we don't have power over it. And this is where learning how to submit to things is really important. Because let's say there's a story about when one goes with the current, right? Be like water. And if you go and you fight the current, you tire yourself out and you never are going to be able to build or go against that flow. But as you direct it and you change direction, you learn to submit to it, you can use the power of the current to move you direct what you want. There's a saying that said, in order to get what you want, they say, set your sails. And that's the idea of using the wind to move you towards where you want. And that's where we see, rather than trying to dominate the path, we allow that to take over. Now you might ask, well, where does this sit energetically and vibrationally? Well, we see that in the higher levels. So when we look at the higher forces, surrender is level 5, right? So first we have joy, faith, sovereignty, grace, and then we have surrender right here. Not dominance, not control, but surrender. And service, and then finally love and truth. The surrender happens when we have incorporated these aspects of ourselves, and we've incorporated joy, faith, sovereignty, and grace as part of who we are. And we can let that love and the freedom and the belief in what we're doing take over. Then we surrender to that process. We don't try to control it. And then by surrendering to it, we allow the current that we've set on, the connections we've made, the energy we've stepped into, naturally move us into our place of service. We find where we are useful. And it's only by submission to where the current takes you, to where we naturally fit, that we find our power. But you don't do this by control. You don't do this by trying to force things. You do it by allowing the current to take you, life to guide you where you need to go. And it is through that guiding principle of life that we find where we need to be. And here, in service, is where we find our purpose. And purpose comes not by force, but by humility and that power. And we see by this model, that's how it works. Because when I realized I should probably do it the other way with the Hawkins scale. But as you guys know, with the Hawkins scale, here you have shame at the bottom. And then when you have enlightenment up top, enlightenment comes when we've forgiven everybody and we've been able to move past our misgivings towards things, and we've been able to step into the truth of what it is we know and who we want to be. And it's only by surrendering and submitting to that power we come to that. But you don't make or try to control these outcomes. It's by letting go of those outcomes and by simply showing up and doing your best, and then trusting that life will guide you through. I'm personally in a big moment like that myself right now. I don't know if anyone made it in the video, but yeah, I'm really learning this straight up, because as I'm stepping more into serving and stepping into my calling and doing what I feel like I need to, it's very interesting seeing the people I need to serve. I made a waiting list, by the way, for those who are interested. I put a waiting list for the different programs that I offer. I just want to see what it is that you guys need. And I put a little questionnaire, waiting list questionnaire, to see which of the programs or aspects of the teachings would be most helpful for you. So it's down in the description below. Let me know what you think. And yeah, I'm learning a lot about this submission and being humble myself. It's very interesting because so much of it about surrender is also about knowing where your no is and understanding boundaries, because you have to know part of surrendering is surrendering to that deeper sense of self, which means if something is not compatible or doesn't fit, the willingness to step away and wait for a better fit, which is part of faith. But we learned that earlier, right? And so it's all these aspects coming together before we can fully step into our service. And this is really, really vital aspect of what we're trying to do in life, because obviously, life without purpose is meaningless. Anyway, comment, like, and subscribe. I'm interested in what you guys take on the video on. Just putting this one out there. Wanted to talk about a little bit about submission and power. In the coming weeks, we'll come up with more examples of this. I'm just wondering how everyone's taking this and how you guys are feeling and what's being said. So please leave a comment down below. Yesterday, we talked about forgiveness, and it's super important in allowing this process of surrender and how it's important to let go in order to move forward. So check that video out next. We'll put it in the link here so you can see it and check more out. Hope all is well. Stay happy, stay healthy. Peace.